brothers and sisters. Welcome to the funeral services and life celebration of our beloved brother Mac Carter. I'm Bishop Mike Shelley. I'm Mac's bishop. I'll be conducting. Bishop Jim Spainhauer will be presiding. And I would like to thank Maria Caras for our prelude music and for David Banks for being our chorister. We'll go ahead and open by singing on page number 134, after which Morgan Christensen will give us our opening prayer.
Our dear, kind, and gracious Heavenly Father, we are so thankful that we were able to travel here safely. We are so thankful for the connection that we all share that was Matt Carter. Please comfort us in this time. And please remind us that this is not truly goodbye. We're thankful for the time that you've given us. We love you so much. Say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Warren. We will now hear a live sketch by Kylie Carter. After that, we will hear from speaker Garrett Smith Carter. And then we will have a musical number accompanied by our organist, Marie Karras, and it will be done by Christopher Karras. And we'll go to that point.
Matt Lester Carter died peacefully surrounded by family on February 16, 2024 in Spanish Fork, Utah. He was born on August 24, 1943 in Spring Lake, Utah to Reuben Eldridge Carter and Miranda Annie Midler. Max spent his early years enjoying time outdoors, hunting, fishing, and trapping. You would often find him with his best friend, Lynn, brother Curtis, and nephews Gary and Dennis. His first job was working at Ray Christopherson's fish farm in Payson. Later on, he liked to work in his yard and sit outside in the sun every day. On June 23, 1965, he married his Kultani, Michael Gay Vincent, in Springville, Utah, where they were later sealed in Salt Lake City Temple. Mac is a graduate of Payson High School. He earned a bachelor's degree from Brigham Young University and a master's degree from the University of Utah in social work. While attending BYU, he was blessed with 2 daughters. Mac started his career in Richfield, Utah, where he was a social worker in the Division of Family Services. He later started losing his eyesight and transferred to Provo to continue his work in closer proximity to better medical care. After transferring to Provo, he was blessed with 2 sons. He enjoyed spending time outdoors with his children on the annual deer hunting trips, fishing, and camping. He loved giving rides to his grandchildren in his motorized wheelchair. He had courage for life and way to endure. Matt worked on a construction project in the town Mexican Hat to save money for his mission. He served the mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Finland from 1961 to 1963. Mac was active in scouting, helping many young men serve while serving as a scoutmaster. Mac was a lifelong member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, serving a variety of callings. He was ordained at 70. He is survived by his wife, Michael Gay Vincent Carter, daughters Helena Carter Thomas and Susan Ellen Christensen, sons David John Carter and Judd Allen Carter, 11 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren, siblings Iona Spainauer and brother Curtis Carter. He was preceded in death by his grandson Shane Stephen Smith and siblings Grove Carter, Rowena William Carter, Verna Kayla, Ben Carter, and Kathleen Karras.
I hope I can get through this, so bear with me. Mac is my grandpa. And I say is because they say legends never die. And everyone that was blessed to know my grandpa Mac knows exactly what I'm talking about. He didn't become a legend by doing crazy things or being extravagant in any way. He did it with his kind heart and genuine loving personality. That he approached every single day with. He did it by building everyone around him up. He is the only person I've ever known that I never heard say a single bad word about anyone or anything. He lived his life with kindness, love, and a true north within his heart that was unwavering. Can you imagine living 2/3 of your life blind and in a wheelchair and having the mental strength and just soul that he had to never say a single complaint, bad word about anything? When I truly think about that, I mean, I know I'm not a quarter of the man he was. He was so strong, and you just felt it in him, the things that he went through, and he was just truly the strongest man I ever knew. And, he was a master at adapting to everything and finding his magical power to uplift and build everyone around him. When I think back to all the times that I visited with him, every time we'd get done with a conversation or a visit, I would truly leave feeling like I was a superhero. He just had this way he was so selfless, and no matter how much you tried to ask him about what was going on with him, it always turned into, what can I, he was just a master at making everyone feel amazing. And every conversation always led to away from anything to do with him and 100% about you with him. And he was just bigger than life, and he, as a human and a man, he was honestly the closest thing to a roadmap I know of what a man should aspire to be. I love that he never looked for the easy way out. He just simply always did what was right. I remember going to his work office when I was little. I don't know how long that would have been. I had to have been 4 years old probably. But I remember the numbers on his phone were huge. They had gotten him a special phone because he couldn't see anymore. And I've thought about that a lot through my life, that what a man he was to hang with it and try to work and provide for his family to the point that he, I remember when he quit working, there was just absolutely no other option. And that's who he was. He just never quit. And, I just remember respecting him so much for that. And, it just really meant a lot to me. He loved my grandma so much. Although their life was unconventional due to his health, just like everything they do, they adapted. One thing that I always kind of stood out to me that I appreciated was they would always load up in their van and cruise around and visit all of us. I'm sure plenty of you got those visits. And I remember, a while back, we were living over here and they had this, literally across the street here, and they had this house over here that they were tinkering around with, thinking of trying to maybe move over here and be closer to some family. And man, I just love seeing them over here, and Grandpa'd be cruising around, he'd make the rounds, come over and see us and see Curtis and, and then some days they'd just come over but I always loved seeing them do that together. And, they just always did those little things together that kept them close. And, they'd pull in the house and I'd always just go sit in the van next to Grandpa and we'd start visiting and, sorry, keep losing my place. So, I remember sitting in the van and my grandpa loved hunting and, that's what I do for a living is I'm a hunting outfitter and he would have to hear every single story. It was never enough. And, I'd tell him all I could remember and he'd be like, hey, Garrett, surely there's more than that, and he just loved it. And, they'd sit out there and then pretty soon, this, you guys all would have seen this, but before long they'd be bickering at each other. Although Grandma was doing most of the bickering. My grandpa, in the most respectful and loving way possible, would put his hand on his forehead and shake his head like you've all seen. And he never said anything back, really. Just in his way, accepted what he knew was going to be the outcome. And with respect and love, just kind of let Grandma do her thing. I'm definitely going to miss those band talks. In all seriousness, they were the cutest couple I've ever seen. My grandma took such good care of him over the years. My great-grandparents must have been amazing people. I slightly remember Grandma Carter when I was tiny. And I remember my grandma's parents, and they really were great people from what I remember. But all of them must have been just amazing too. As far as I know, I could be wrong, so I hope I don't offend anybody, but all their kids lived successful, happy marriages. All of them, which is really something nowadays. And Uh, my grandma and grandpa have been through so much and just found a way to thrive. And grandpa loved all his kids so much, and they were all so different. But man, he found a way just to connect with all of them in the truest way possible. And myself, I was a lot older than all the other grandkids. And man, that was a special time in my life, looking back. The time I got to spend with them. My mom was busy trying to figure out how to provide for us. And, I spent so much time with grandma and grandpa. And that time is very sacred to me. One thing that always meant a lot to me about grandpa is, he was a soft man, and he always told me he loved me from the time I was little, and all of us kids, everyone. And, I just feel like that was a good lesson he taught us to, let the ones you care about know every time. And he did. Every time he hung up the phone, he'd tell you he loved you. I tell him, and I know every one of us, told him every time we talked to him. And that meant a lot to me. And, he just dang sure made sure that you knew that he loved you. And Grandpa had a big imagination and was such a good storyteller. My oldest memories of him are stories about Sasquatch and Indians, and I recall something called a lean-to bird. I'm not sure what that was, but I remember hearing stories about them. And when I was little, he would tell me a story every night that I spent with him and scratch my back. I don't remember the end of a single story because he just tell me till I was out. And, those memories are just, going to be with me forever. And he never cut any corners. He was never like, all right, you little punk, go to bed. He really enjoyed telling those stories. But, for me personally, as life went on, he instilled his love for the outdoors in me and gave me a passion. It was him hunting and the outdoors and the time he got to spend outdoors with his family. That was him, and he absolutely lived to talk about those stories and relive it with his family and loved ones. And, honestly, what he taught me about hunting, I've been able to make it my career and something that's amazing for me and my family. And, I don't think I'd have the passion to do it the way I do. I get sick of it as is, but he taught me to love it in a way that opportunities it could bring. I take my son with me now, and it's truly almost like a religion the way he taught me to enjoy it and love it. And, kind of the past, 15 years or so, I guide a lot of mountain lion hunts, and I kind of started this little deal. I would call him whenever I had service, and let him listen to the dogs, and man, he loved it. He loved the play-by-play. You could hear him on the phone just getting anxious and, well, what's going on now? The dogs are getting quieter, they're louder. He just loved it, and I loved having that with him. It was kind of like our special little deal that I really enjoyed. And he was such a witty guy in his own way. But the last time I went to visit him at the assisted living place, there was a woman from the facility that I don't know what her position was or whatever, but she was in there visiting with him and asking him all sorts of questions. Me and my little boy were there. Anyway, she was asking him at some point in the conversation about what he enjoys. And, he gave a list, like he would, I enjoy, and just like, him, he made sure to spout off the first thing because he wanted to make me feel good. And he said, well, number one, I love hearing Garrett's stories, which, when the other grandkids was there, he dang sure made sure and say whatever it is that they're involved with. But he was just good at that. And so he goes on a list of these things he enjoys. And somewhere in the conversation he says, I used to be a big BYU football fan. And he says, but I just don't really seem to be too into that much anymore. And the woman, she asked him some stuff about it, and then says, well, why do you think it is that you don't really enjoy the football games anymore? Is it because of, your health issues? And she kind of refers to it as she's thinking it's hard for him to see and whatnot. And he says, no, they suck. It's hard to watch. and man, I about died. That lady, she didn't know what to think. But, man, that was him, I'm so grateful for that last visit with him. We just talked about all the things he enjoyed, and he gave me a little bit of everything he had to offer, that was so funny when he told her that. So I truly feel fortunate that the greatest man I've ever known was my grandpa. And I hope that when my time's up, I will have at least mastered a portion of Grandpa's qualities. And pass down his legacy and the legend he was. I know a ton of extremely amazing men, whether it be business or just the way they represent themselves. And Grandpa would have stood out in any room. Just the way he presented himself. And, he truly did just live life in a absolutely unbelievable way. I can't think of I honestly don't know another person that's even close to as genuine and true, and he literally just naturally did everything right. And, I'm just very grateful he was my grandpa. I love you, Grandpa.
In the quiet, misty morning, when the moon has gone to bed, when the sparrows stop their singing, and the sky is clear and red, when the summer ceased its gleaming, when the corn is past its prime, when adventure's lost its meaning, I'll be homeward bound in time. Bind me not to the pasture, chain me not to the plow. Set me free to find my calling, and I'll return to you somehow. If you find it's me you're missing, if you're hoping I'll return, to your thoughts I'll soon be listening, and in the road I'll stop and turn. Then the wind will set me racing, as my journey nears its end, and the path I'll be retracing will be homeward bound again. Bind me not to the pasture, chain me not to the plow. Set me free to find my calling, and I'll return to you somehow. In the quiet, misty morning, when the moon has gone to bed, when the sparrows stop their singing, I'll be homeward bound again. Thank you, brother and sister Karis, for that lovely musical number. And Kylie and Garrett, really appreciate your words. Wonderful to hear. Now we will hear from speakers Susan Christensen and Lynn Jacobson. We'll go to that point.
He said that's all he's got. Now he's gonna get the stool out for me. Is that tall enough?
Are you up there?
Just a little taller, Mom. Tall, not small.
Thanks. The great thing was though, is that my dad ended up being about the same height as me, right? I'm like Garrett. I hope I can make it through this. And Garrett, he was born, it just felt like he was just the end of us as siblings. So he didn't feel like a grandchild to us. He just felt like part of the kid group.
Little brother.
Yep, our little brother, the youngest brother. Thank you, Chris and Marie. That was a beautiful song. Our dad, as you all know, was gentle, humble, compassionate, courageous. He taught us to endure and to hold on to light and truth. He helped us know that there was always a brighter hope and a brighter outlook on life. He loved lots of things in life, as you all know. He loved trapping, and he learned that from his dad. His dad and siblings, they were great trappers. He, early on in his life, he would go trapping with Helena. I was sick and not healthy and couldn't walk much. So I remember that we would take Dad and Helena down to Utah Lake, and they would get out with this very stinky potion that Dad kept in a bucket in the backyard. You didn't want to go out to the back corner of the yard. Anyway, we would drop the house, and Helena would help Dad walk, and they'd go check their trap line. They would get muskrats, and now and then they would get a mink, and Dad, he would have them on stretchers in the basement. So he knew how to do everything. He also loved gardening. All of his siblings loved dirt, and they loved to plant. They loved to watch things grow, and they were excellent at it, and they didn't want to ever give it up, no matter how old they were. They just kept on and kept on using dirt for things. It was very useful. They loved to hike on it, loved to plant in it, everything. As we said, Dad had a great sense of humor. We played tricks on him. He one time brushed his teeth with Desitin. He was blind, he couldn't see, so he had picked up. One time he drank a cup of French shrimp. It was sitting on the counter, just in the cup, defrosting, waiting to be fed to the fish, and he got it mixed up with just his cup of water. We didn't understand why he drank the whole cup of it, though. But he did. He does like stinky fish, like the Kippert snack, so maybe it was good to him. This is the trick he played on us. He went on his mission to Finland, and he said he was gonna make a Finnish drink. So he had this mixture concocted in the kitchen in 2-liter bottles. And it had been sitting around in the kitchen for, gosh, at least a week in these 2-liter bottles.
It was not an alcoholic.
Yeah, he just said it was gonna be this really good Finnish drink. So, we all hung out in the kitchen a lot watching TV, and the bottles, 2-liter bottles, were hanging out there with us. And then one night we hear this big pop, and the 2-liter bottle had exploded, and it was like all over on the ceiling and the walls. And we're like, Dad, what is going on? Like, what? Your drink just exploded. And then pretty soon, pop, another one exploded. And then pretty soon, all 5 of them had exploded. And then we're like, Dad, that's fermented. Like, that is stinky, Dad. What are you making? Anyway, then he fessed up. Oh, maybe it was fermented. Maybe I was making something alcoholic. Maybe. Anyway, we're like, Dad, if that was a mission drink, what were you doing? Anyway, that was funny. He, like everybody says, he was a hard worker. My parents bought this old house in Provo, and the underneath was full of dirt. It had one room, but because there were only 2 bedrooms upstairs, Mom, 2, and Mom and Dad were like, well, it could be a much bigger house if it wasn't clear full of dirt in the basement. So he dug that basement out with a shovel and turned it into 1, 2, 3 bedrooms and a laundry room and a bathroom downstairs, and made it into a huge home. He put a conveyor belt through a window to help get the dirt out. First, he was carrying the dirt out by a bucket, and then, I don't know, maybe he and his friends decided he could use a conveyor belt. But anyway, yeah, that's what I remember. My dad would go downstairs, clean, looking good after work, and then hours later, he would come up covered in dirt and dust and exhausted because he'd been down there digging for hours. Tough man and everything he did. We had lots of good family traditions. We would go to our Aunt Kathleen's house for Thanksgiving, and we would go to my mom's house, my mom's mom and dad house for the other year for Thanksgiving. And so we built lots of good family traditions. We always went deer hunting with Uncle Bill's family. We got to know our cousins really good, and we always went, for the 4th of July with Uncle Danny's family. We we just had like good traditions. We spent a lot of time just going on family vacations also. We went to Disneyland, we went to Yellowstone. We always went fishing. We'd go to Strawberry a lot. My grandparents on my mom's side had a cabin there. And we would go stay in the cabin and fish. Of course, we're, a regular family that fights a lot. I remember my mom would say, Matt, do something with those kids. And then he would say, what do you want me to do? Anyway, they were cute. I'd say that my mom and dad were really great examples of charity. My mom would drive my dad to do home studies, and then she'd sit outside and wait while he went in and did his work, and she helped him get his master's degree. He, of course, he couldn't see by that time, so he needed to listen to his books either on tape or else he needed them read to him. So my mom spent hours reading and typing up his papers. So Mom and Dad would say, you can't come in the living room and hear this. You can stay in the kitchen. So we would, listen through the doorway. And several winters, my mom took me to California when I didn't feel well when I was younger. And my dear dad, I don't know how he did it, but he stayed home and worked and took care of whatever kids stayed home while my mom took me to California for doctor treatments. And I don't know how he did it, because he just stayed home and went to work and took care of the kids. And I don't know what happened there, but I know we went to California, and I'm sure we were having more fun than him. I know that my dad had a strong testimony, and I know that all of you know that too, right? He was extremely humble, extremely loving, and the most important thing to him was that we all got along, that we all were kind, and that there was no tension ever. He he believed and he knows that there is life after this life. And I know, and I know most of you know that there are guardian angels. I know that our dad is with us right now. I know that if we do the things that the Church of Jesus Christ tells us, that we all can be together again after we pass away. And I know my dad would want you all to remember that. I know that he would want me to say from him, I love you very much. And we are so grateful for all of you. This is like, you're clear to the back of this. This is amazing. Thank you, all of you. This is an example of our dad's love. He loved everyone. He is the warmest man that I know. Thank you all for being our friends and his friend. We love you, Dad.
I was Mac's friend. I was Mac's friend for 75 years. We met when we were probably about 6 or 7 years old. I'm 82 now. And we first met at school up here at the Spring Lake School. It was about a week ago. The Gay called us from the hospital where Mac was last Saturday and said that he had taken a turn for the worse. That it was a matter of days. Sharon and I were both sick at the time. We didn't get back over there. And it was Monday. And Gay called us and told us that Mac had passed. Sharon and I shared a very private moment of sorrow and sadness. The loss of our good friend. But it didn't last long because we knew that death came to Mac as a friend. That he no longer needed a wheelchair. He could see, he could hear, and he was not in pain. The last time I talked with Mac, he was in the hospital. He was very weak. He couldn't talk. It was hard for him to even formulate a sentence. We were alone. I think Gay had just left. She'd put in a night shift with him. We had about an hour together. It was hard to talk to him because he couldn't talk back. So I took the initiative and talked to Mac about our youth. The crazy things we did as young kids. It was a good time to grow up in Spring Lake, especially for little boys. There was no end of wonders. We spent all of our time at the lake, fishing, over in the grove, chasing leopard frogs. We knew where the pheasant nests were. We knew where the mallard ducks had their nests. We were forever switching eggs and wondering what happened. We would hunt. A lot of times we were hunting mountain lions up on the mountain with our BB guns. And we'd always talk about how fortunate those mountain lions were that we didn't find them. Those were special times at the Spring Lake School. There were 2 classrooms up there. The 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grades were in one room. 4th, 5th, and 6th, I think, were in another. At that particular time, psychologists, educators, and teachers had not yet discovered that to label children could be damaging to their young, developing psyches. And we were labeled. Mac and I were labeled as dummies. He divided our class up into 2 little groups very often, 2 reading groups. We'd sit on our little wooden chairs, take turns reading our Dick and Jane books. Mac and I were in that one group, comfortably ensconced right at the bottom, side by side, probably plotting some assault on the local magpie population or a fishing trip or something. We thought it was a status symbol to be numbered among the dumb kids. We made it through those elementary school grades. We made it through high school, junior high, again, probably as the dumb kids. We also made it through college, again, as dumb kids. And we made it through graduate school, obtained a master's degree. We talked about how that was pretty good for a couple of dumb kids. There were a couple of things that happened at the Spring Lake School that I wanted to share with you. I don't need to speak to Mac's character. His kids and his grandparents have already described the kind of man he was. If you knew Mac, you knew the kind of man he was. He was a special person. At the school, there was a couple of events that were to have an impact on our lives. At that time, Mac and I always took our BB guns to school. Obviously, this was another time. You wouldn't do that nowadays. All these school shootings and things that are going on. Mac and I were involved in the first school shooting. And unfortunately, Mac was a shootee, and I was a shooter. And it happened like this. We were allowed to take our guns out at lunchtime. And we'd go out and behind the school. The normal kids, the smart kids, would play in the sand bed or down at the lake. Mac and I and his brother Curtis would go around and get in the trash cans, dig down there. This was later to be known as dumpster diving. We were the first at that. We dug down and found those big bottles that the lunch lady had fixed our lunch with, and we'd shoot them. We couldn't shoot them so they would break and leave glass around the school kids, so we had to break them over the trash can. So we'd dig those big bottles out. They wouldn't sit on the edge of the barrel, so one of us would hold them. And Mac was the holder, and it was only a matter of 4 or 5 feet, so I took the shot from my hip, couldn't miss, and I hit him on the fingernail. Oh, I hurt him. Immediately turned black almost. He was in a lot of pain. I told him he had to pull himself together because we were going back to class and we didn't want to get in trouble. Me specifically. And we made it back, and he went to the back of the classroom and he just couldn't help it. There was so much pain from that blown off fingernail that he was crying, and the teacher spotted it. What's the matter, Mac? And everybody looked at Mac and wondered what was going on. And Mac held it for a while, and he finally said, "Lynn shot me." And everybody's eyes looked at me like I was a homicidal maniac or something. That was the end of our BB guns at school. I always told Mac it was his fault that we lost our BB gun privilege because he was such a crybaby. He would tell me it was my fault because I was such a lousy shot. And we would laugh about it. There's one other experience there at the school that was to have a profound and long-lasting effect on Mac. He really never recovered from it. It should have required psychotherapy and even counseling. It happened like this. Mac was a very small kid, as has already been mentioned by Susan. He was the littlest kid in our class, littler than most of the girls. And as such, he was a target to be teased and bullied, if you will. He was very shy, always in the background. We concocted a plan to catch Mac, hauling down the hallway and throwing him in the girls' restroom, and we did. We held the door, and Mac said he never recovered from that. It was the most traumatic event that he experienced in his life. We had a lot of fun as kids. I value his friendship over the years. We've always been together. Even when we were on our missions, we joked that we were close because he was in Finland, I was in Norway, only Sweden was between us. So we were still close. Mac was very independent. It really hurt him to be dependent on others. That was the hardest thing about his sickness, being dependent on others for basic care. But he did it. And I have to speak to how he was regarded as a social worker. He was good at what he did. He took on some of our toughest cases, and he always did a good job. He was admired by all of his peers, all of the other social workers. Our agency occupied the 5th floor of the state office building over in Provo. And every day Mac would come in his power chair, ready to get off the elevator. The receptionists would all rush out to greet him. They liked Mac. And they'd talk to him, dote on him, how you doing? And of course, Mac was Mac. Everybody liked him. And he always took time to talk to all of us. It was not uncommon to see Mac scooting up and down the hall in his power chair with one of the lady social workers on his lap, or one of the secretaries. They all loved him, just because of the guy that he was. Some of us that worked with Mac, we'd go for a break about 10 o'clock every morning, take the elevator down to the 1st floor. There was a break room down there. Of course, we'd take Mac with us. He'd back into the elevator, and we'd go down, get us a Coke, solve a few problems, tell some lies, and we'd go back up to the office, and we'd always stop at either the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th floor. The door would open the elevator, and Mac would go out. We'd let it shut, and we'd go on up to the 5th floor. And maybe a half hour or so later, Mac would come back, and he'd go around and cuss us off for making him get lost in the elevator. It wasn't mean to him. My wife said, "Oh, yeah, you're being mean to him." Mac laughed harder than any of us. That's just the kind of guy he was. There were other times that we had there at the office that were good. And one in particular, I remember a long time ago, Deseret Industries had an outlet on 5th West there in Provo. Our office was in 3rd West at that time, and Mac was in a wheelchair. He was losing his sight then. We'd take our lunch hour and go over to the Deseret Industries site there. And we'd forage around and look for bargains. And we were there shopping one day, and we noticed a guy there that was working there, a big guy. And I could see that when I looked at him, I noticed there was a big skull and crossbones tattooed on his shoulder. He had a hate tattooed on one fist and kill on the other, obviously on a work assignment from some penal colony or something. He was working there, and Mac and I had discovered this choice on what we wanted to, couldn't find a price on it. So Mac wheeled over behind that guy. You could see the guy had long black hair. And so Mac wheeled up there, and he says, kind of loud, he said, "Well, let's ask this nice lady here how much this costs." That guy turned around, and he was smoking. And I could tell he wasn't going to hit somebody in a wheelchair, so I had to do some fast talking to get us out of there. We had a lot of fun times like that. There's a couple of things that I just wanted to reference quickly. one of them that appeared in Mac's obituary. I'm sure his kids and his wife put it together. He said Mac had a courage for life and a way to endure. Boy, that didn't ever describe Mac. That's him. There was one other thing that I wanted to reference is when I notified my daughter Holly that Mac had passed. And she texted her husband Larry and told him that Mac had died. And Larry texted back and says, I thought his text was a classic. He said, there's a special place in heaven for men like Mac. And I think that's true. I couldn't pay a tribute to Mac without also paying a tribute to his dear wife, Gay. Best thing I can say about her was that she was there. She was always there. She took over those chores that she had to, and she took care of Mac the best that she could. And for that, we will always be indebted to her. We want her to know that we appreciate her, that we love her, that she will always be our friend. Mac was my friend. He was my friend for 75 years. I will miss him.
We're so grateful for the words that have been spoken, the stories that have been told about Brother Mac Carter. Excuse me. It's my opportunity to give a few remarks as the bishop. I jotted down some notes here, and I'll try to be brief, but I think I first noticed Mac in the year 2000 when we moved into the neighborhood, his neighborhood in Provo. Now, I had been associated with that neighborhood since my birth in 1967, but I didn't live there. I just frequented that neighborhood often and came past his house very frequently because I would go down and see my grandmother who lived about a block and a half south of Mac and Michael Gay. But at some point I saw an older guy cruising around the neighborhood in an electric wheelchair. And I was busy living life, raising a family, and building a home. But after a while, I saw Mac more frequently, and I noticed Mac more frequently. And I didn't really stop to take the time to really observe what was going on. I just noticed it in passing. And one day my middle son came to me and said, Dad, there's this old guy over there in his electric wheelchair, and he's raking leaves. And I don't remember if he said, can I go help? Can I go get my friends from the neighborhood to help him? Or I did go grab my friends from the neighborhood and we helped him. I don't remember which, but it happened. And so then I began to notice Mac more and more often. And my son really had a respect and a love for Mac. As many people have talked about, Mac's example in so many ways of righteousness is incalculable. I just cannot put an amount on the amount of righteousness that we all got to witness firsthand by knowing Mac Carter. In 2011, our ward boundaries changed, and I got to know Mac quite well. I was the high priest group leader, and Mac was one of the high priests in our high priest group. And I was very soon extremely impressed with Mac, and I don't necessarily get impressed with people real soon or get impressed with a lot of people. And I could see very clearly and quickly what a man of integrity that Mac was, and there was absolutely no showing us in Mac. He did what he did with no fanfare, no expected fanfare. However, I wonder if the manufacturers of those wheelchairs could somehow get a picture of Mac raking leaves or mowing the lawn or shoveling snow out of an electric wheelchair. I think there would be some fanfare for Mac. In most any other setting besides this, it would be very unique to talk about somebody mowing their lawn or somebody else's lawn, or raking leaves, or even shoveling snow. I saw Mac shovel snow a few times out of his wheelchair. But in this congregation that we're in here, that seems quite normal, because we've all seen or experienced or been the recipient of Mac doing such. I know a lot of great men, and very few do I know that are such a living example of Christ-like behavior as Mac Carter. As it's been said before, he never said negative things about anybody. He just didn't, he didn't focus on the negative. He wasn't unaware of things. And for a while, I just assumed Mac was just blissfully unaware. But he was not. He was very aware, and yet I feel that he actively chose the path that Christ was on. And we've all been blessed to have Mac Carter in our lives. I believe it was last Sunday night, last Sunday. It may have been 2 weeks ago Sunday. Mac was on my mind a lot, and I had been I had been over to see him a few times in the Spanish work rehab, and I felt that I needed to go see Mac. And my first counselor is a prior bishop of Mac's, and a recently released stake presidency member is also a prior bishop of Mac's. And so I gathered those two men, and we went over to give Mac a blessing. And I walked in and I got close, and I know Mac really struggled with eyesight. But he always seemed to know who I was and when I was there, or I don't know, it was my voice, I don't know what it was, but somehow Mac knew. Not just then, but always. If he could grab me in church, he would talk to me about hunting or my latest hunting trip or fishing or something outdoorsy of that nature. But this is kind of funny, because I came close to Mac's bedside and the two other bishops were behind me, but even if Mac could have seen that far, he couldn't have seen those other two bishops. And he very sincerely said, "Bishop, you are the best bishop ever." And Judd, Michael Gay, and me all at about the same time said, "Hold on. There's two of your other bishops that are here too, so be careful what you say, you're going to get us in trouble." and everybody had a good laugh about that. But I think that Mac would love to know that when you are grieving about his loss, that you would go spend time in the outdoors and do some of the stuff that Mac did with you while he was alive, and that you maybe contemplated and shared some of the stuff, knowledge, experiences, and wonderful aspects of this wonderful earth that Mac shared with you. And I went shooting my guns yesterday afternoon, and I think that Mac was really happy that I did that. I think I've covered everything. I would like to say again that if you met Mac Carter and had anything to do with Mac, you got to witness one of the greatest examples that I'm aware of a Christ-like person who genuinely exhibited Christ-like behavior. And we have all been able to feel the Spirit of Christ through our association with Mac Carter. Brothers and sisters, I know that Mac had a strong testimony, and I have a strong testimony, and I know that the gospel is true, and that it keeps us safe, and it makes us happy. And we are to attempt to live our lives in a kind, loving, supportive, non-judgmental, helpful way that Mac has shown us. Brothers and sisters, I leave you that message in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. We will now have, it's listed as a congregational hymn, but it's also listed as a recording somewhere out there. I didn't get a copy, and I'm not real good with those words, so I don't know what we're going to do, but I did Google it. There are some lyrics on Google, but whatever we're doing next for the closing hymn is what we're going to do. And then after that, Gary Knapp will give us our closing prayer. Just a reminder, the interment will be at Payson Civic Cemetery. And at the cemetery, we will have a dedication of the grave by Barry A. Vincent. So now we will have our closing song.
Somewhere out there, beneath the pale moonlight, someone's thinking of me and loving me tonight.
Somewhere out there, someone saying a prayer that we'll find one another in that big somewhere out there. And even though I know how very far apart we are, it helps to think we might be wishing on the same bright star.
And when the night wind starts to sing a lonesome lullaby, It helps to think we're sleeping underneath the same big sky. Somewhere out there, if Lord can see us through, then we'll be together somewhere out there, out where dreams come
And even though I know how very far apart we are, it helps to think we might be wishing on the same bright star.
And when the night wind starts to sing a lonesome lullaby, it helps to think we're sleeping underneath the same big sky. Somewhere out there, if love can see us through, then we'll be together somewhere out there, out where dreams
Dear Heavenly Father, as we come before Thee this day, we'd like to thank You for the opportunity that we have had to be here and to be involved in these services for Mac. We'd like to thank Thee for our relationship with Mac and bless each one of us, Gay and Lou and family, and each one of us, that we will be able to remember and take comfort in the fact that families are forever. We'd like to ask Thee, Father, to be with us as we travel to the cemetery, that we'll do so in safety. And we thank Thee for all Thou does for us, and we love Thee, and we say this in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Would the congregation please rise?
You've been asked to be pallbearer. We're going to have you follow behind the casket. The rest of the family will follow behind them.
If you've been asked to be a pallbearer, please